Microphone is on. Hold up. Yeah, that's it. It says this hangout on there is live. I'm live. All right, so let me just hurry up and share my screen real fast because I am going to discuss something that I think needs to at least be talked about. So I'm sharing my screen and let me kill this. And I just published I published, it's not really a blog post. I just published a snapshot of something that I tweeted, right? So this bizmonger.wordpress.com is my technical blog, right? And I tweeted I tweeted something that I hope people pay attention to, and I hope that there's a discussion held, right? I tweeted to Pavneet and Sandro that perhaps I would be embraced for my standards and values at Toyota, which I have yet to observe in my own industry. Hence, I work in the software industry. And so I've been trying to go out my way to practice what Scott Volashin has advocated when I heard him on Developer on Fire, in which my understanding is he advocated to take interest in things outside of software, to perhaps gain inspiration when building software. And so I thought that was a pretty good idea. And I've been trying to go out of my way to just learn about other things, learn about automotive. In this case, I was really curious about why some manufacturers are known for high quality. Hence, me making return visits to the motorsport dealership because certain parts just fall off of my bike, and it's happened repeatedly. Um, I have a Can-Am Spider, and I'm like, yo, parts shouldn't just be falling off my bike when I'm going like 100 miles an hour. I don't get it. And so I was interested, and I decided to Google, Toyota quality. Or no, I Googled like Toyota QA, and there was a Wikipedia page that I clicked on that was titled the Toyota Way, and so I could click on that over here, right? And I scanned through it, and there are some things that kind of jumped out at me that I thought was interesting, right? And it's essentially the Toyota Way I perceive as Toyota's philosophy on building quality. And so something that I found interesting was that I wish I could double click on this and make it larger. Um, was some of their principles, like principle 5 of this Toyota Way is build a culture of stopping to fix problems, to get quality right the first time. And I think I've heard of that before, where like I, I guess it was Toyota where, or maybe it's at all automotive assembly lines where if something's not right, they might pull the cord and the production line stops until it gets resolved. I mean, I thought I heard stories about that, but that's something that I have to ask the question: do we really do this within our own industry of building software? As expensive as software is, and when we consider the amount of time, the amount of effort within the software development life cycle, which part do we spend most of the time acting on? Is it really building software, or is it troubleshooting it? And how often do we run into the same type of patterns of issues? Null reference exception. There's a lot. Of course, when I say there's a lot, I struggle to think of them. But how often do we even see the same anomalies that were once resolved pop right back up again, right? That's something that should ideally never ever happen. You should ideally you should never ever experience as a developer or as an end user a problem that was once observed and resolved and it pops up again. You should never ever see that ever. All right. I'm like a Nazi when it comes to that. You should never ever observe an anomaly once it has been fixed. However, within the software industry, it happens and we don't think twice about it. We just patch it again and blindly not know what other breaking changes we just introduced by sticking bubble gum on that specific area of the code. So build a culture of stopping to fix problems to get quality right the first time. That's something that I know I strive to do as a consultant, but this personal this standard that I have, this practice that I have, it's not being embraced by the shops that I try to help. It's more of I'm being perceived as a disruptor or someone that may be challenging to work with versus someone that really cares. And so that's something that, yo, I'm gonna call it out because Toyota is I would say a global leader when it comes to building quality into their automotive products. And well, if they have these standards and they're recognized of having higher quality than American manufacturers, and that might be a biased opinion, I think it's a popular opinion, then maybe we can learn from them. Perhaps we could. Um, I think it's pretty blatant that their products are known to last. And so maybe we should dig into the question of why. So I don't want to come off condescending, right? Because I observed after I watched my videos that I kind of come off like that. And that's something I'm trying to work on. But I think people get that confused with just being frustrated because or I know things could be done better. And I know it doesn't take that much effort. It just takes people wanting to improve. So with that said, that was principle 5, right? And then principle 7, I drew a red square over something else that I thought was interesting. So principle 7 was like, what do they have? Use visual control so no problems are hidden. And then they have a bullet list in which they have, sort out unneeded items. All right. So when I think about sort out unneeded items, I think about all the frameworks that architects that don't write code mandate. They say before it's really a premature decision that is just so common and is practiced that I really hope that we can focus on this practice that I think is hurting our industry. And instead of making these decisions up front, which actually hardens the software instead of makes software soft, I think that, again, we can learn from Toyota's philosophy. So sort out unneeded items. Do we really need, and that's kind of related to this down here. If you see my cursor, this technology is pulled by manufacturing, not push to manufacturing. I think these two are related, even though this is a different under a different principle. But essentially, instead of having architects or stakeholders push technologies down to us and say, thou shall use, you know, I don't know, reactive UI, or thou shall use Caliburn Micro. Instead of doing that, let's first start solving the problem and then say, hey, I need this. Hey, I need that. As we're building the solution, versus making arbitrary judgments that are actually not contributing to software being flexible. And also, it's actually providing more ceremony and making it more challenging to build a testable solution. So again, I'm trying really hard not to come off condescending, but I feel like these are good ideas that people are ignoring, and that's something that I just want to try to influence. I really want to help this industry. So sort out unneeded items. The other part is have a place for everything, right? Uh, I guess anybody can interpret that how they want, but the way I interpret that for my software industry is to have a place for everything is me. I completely separate integration from the actual domain, right? Like I don't care about the UI. I don't care about a database. I don't care about a web server. All I care about is nailing down the business rules, nailing down the policy, making sure that it is implemented clearly, it has the proper constraints on it to reduce any type of issues or anomalies. And once I have that nailed in place, once I have it thoroughly tested, then I could plug in the details that I associate to integration. The UI, the web services, and database, and all that stuff that isn't the actual policy of the business, right? It's not the actual rules that we're building this system for. They're details that are important, right? It's interfaces are important, or else the rules are pretty much useless, right? But the rules are the core, and I believe in getting the core solidified, established, and just nailed down, right? And so that's my response to have a place for everything is, I would say, identify your priorities, identify your targets, and knock them off, one by one. The other part is keep the area clean. This reminds me of Robert C. Martin, aka Uncle Bob, Boy Scout rule, where you, as you're iterating through files or classes, or basically as you're going through the code base, if you see opportunities for improvement, then improve it. It's only going to make things better. People argue, oh, no, you might introduce breaking changes. Well, it's great that you're aware of that. So write some test automation to identify that as well. And so that's something that I think is a good idea that I do almost every morning. When I come into work, my mind is razor sharp, because my mind pretty much dissolves, over time. And so when I step into work at like 6 in the morning, I am ready, and I'm just going through the code base. Let me reduce this amount of code. Let me reduce this footprint. Oh shoot, we need some tests over here. We don't have tests over here. And just just contributing value, you know, reducing the amount of technical debt that I think the most technical debt just shouldn't be there at all, you know, but I'm not going to vent about that yet, maybe later. All right, so next is create rules and standard operating procedures. Um, yeah, so how would I interpret that? I would say, people fight me on this, but I would say that rule is should have, in regards to business logic, I'm not talking about integration logic, but for business logic, we should have 80% code coverage, period. All right. I don't want, and this is business logic. All right. I'm not talking about UI. I'm not talking about the actual repositories, right? I'm talking about the business rules. 80% of the business rules at minimum should should be covered by tests, at least. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science. And for people that have issues, and I know there's people right now that are screaming through their terminals like, you know, Scott's an idiot. You know, that doesn't mean anything. Well, it does mean something. It means that you are encouraged or influenced to scrutinize your code, and that's what matters. When you see a class, or well, if you see a namespace, a class, or a method that is lacking test coverage, you immediately investigate why. And that is important, is that when you see an anomaly within the system, or if you see something interesting in the system, you explore to figure out why it's so interesting. And then you make a decision based on your findings. That is important. That's what code coverage does. It is a tool to help you scrutinize your code so you can get it right. Because the whole point of this is to continue building software, to continue adding functionality. When you don't do this, then you're more liable to, again, what the majority of the industry does in regards to their effort within the software development lifecycle, is they spend the majority of their time debugging, troubleshooting, right? So this is why this is very important, I think, right? This helps me stay productive. This encourages me to do more building, more extending than debugging, right? Um, so I was talking about create rules for standard operating procedures. I use code coverage as one possible policy or rule. Um, I'm all about tests, right? Um, another rule may be the number of lines, or the maximum amount of lines per function, or if we're talking about object oriented, per method, per class, per unit test, right? You shouldn't have a unit test that's 50 lines. You know, that's a huge code smell. Like, a unit test is documentation, and it should be very clear. It should scream what the intent of that test is. It should scream what the setup is. It should scream what the actual test is, and it should scream what we are verifying. And that's it. There's also a fourth stage, which is tear down, right? But within the unit tests, especially dealing with garbage collection, that's already done implicitly. So yeah. So like I said, you know, perhaps another rule could be the the number of lines of code for a given scope, module, etc. To move on, maintain the system and continue to improve it. I think I've already talked about that. And then when we move down here to principle 8, technology is pulled by manufacturing, not pushed to manufacturing. this is more of a jab to architects. But this makes sense, right? I think, Toyota is all about reducing waste. I'm not sure if our industry, the software industry, has the same values about reducing waste. Honestly, I'm going to be blatant. I'm going to say flat out, our industry doesn't care about waste. We are very wasteful, and we don't have any guilt when we collect a paycheck from the client. Um, this reminds me. I was once told by one of my mentors that if every U.S. citizen received on their pay stub, when they receive a paycheck, and taxes are taken out of that paycheck by the federal, state, and city governments, if they were to see, I don't know if I could say itemized, but if they could see a detailed ledger of where their money is going, like this amount of money, you $10 of your taxes went towards, testing pigs for whatever disease. $100 of your taxes for your 2 weeks worth of work went towards military spending, and they just itemized everything, right? The United States would revolt, right, when they would see the amount of spending that the U.S. government is doing that based on specific programs. If they just looked at those expenses, they would argue some, if not most of those expenses as, why am I funding this? Why are you taking money out of my check to pay for something that I don't think is really an interest of my country, right? So why am I saying all this? Because I'm trying to create an analogy. If the client knew how their check was being spent for crafting software, there would be like a tribunal. There would be some serious questions that were asked about. Hold up, I'm paying you how much an hour, and you spend this percentage of each hour doing what? They wouldn't be happy, right? But the thing is they don't know how their money is being spent. Their money is being spent debugging. And so I actually posted a video about that, I think like 3 weeks ago. People didn't like that video. But I mean, I don't know. You don't like the truth? That's the truth. I mean, there's probably a better way for me to communicate that. But anyway, so I said all that because I was talking about something in here. But that's pretty much it. So, to make a long story short, in conclusion, I was very curious about how other industries manage quality, and I view Toyota as a global leader when it comes to establishing quality within their products, maybe even services. And that led me to a Wikipedia page on the Toyota Way, which is Toyota's philosophy on maintaining quality, high quality. And then I attempted to basically use the Toyota Way as my argument of what this industry is not doing. So, and I'm probably going to start going scatterbrain right now, because this industry is going to argue that, oh, no, Scott, the software industry is agile. Well, no, the software industry is not agile. The software industry is Scrum. All right, they do daily stand-ups. That's not agile. Um, they do poker planning. That's not agile. All right, that's Scrum. It's not agile. Now, I'm sure that my interpretation of agile is probably flawed, right? Um, I can revisit the Agile Manifesto, right? Because that's what Agile is supposed to be. But I think Agile was more, I would like to think, I hope that Agile was geared more towards developer behavior. But instead, a lot of the shops that I have worked in, the developers are really just on the receiving end, right? It's the stakeholders that have been embracing Agile. The developers have just been receiving the orders. So, I mean, to me, to be agile is to essentially apply some of these principles of the Toyota way, right? I think to be agile is to really value developers that are motivated, that you can trust to work autonomously to get the job done. Developers that really are focused on continuous improvement. It's not lip service, right? It's not lip service. They actually demonstrate it. And that's something that I don't really see with mainstream developers is I don't see demonstration of continuous improvement. What I do see is excuses about this is how we do it here, or no, we got to get this shipped, right? Well, I think I understand. I understand that this is the way we do it. This is what we do here is probably based on certain things that have happened in the past. I get that. I would ask, well, what happened in the past, and let's analyze that, and let's figure out how we can resolve that so that we can keep increasing quality, so we can deliver software faster and with higher quality, and it's sustainable. We can keep dropping feature after feature after feature to the market and not slow down, right? Um, I look at Microsoft Azure. I don't know anything about Azure at all. But I know one thing, they pump out features like on the regular. And I know that that is huge software. I know that that software is complicated, right? In regards to the policies, the business rules, right? But they are just pushing out features like crazy. Maybe we can learn from a Microsoft. Maybe we can learn from those developers and the processes that they use. One thing I know is I guarantee that they are very critical on technical debt. I guarantee that they don't even want to entertain technical debt, right? I think majority of this industry embraces technical debt. We default to technical debt, and we say, oh, we'll clean it up later. When we know that no, later we're going to get more work, we're going to get more features. So yeah, I'm just I'm basically verbalizing what I'm thinking, obviously, but I think a lot about this, right? Um, and agile, I don't think it's working until developers actually start exercising it. So I don't know. I think I said enough. This might be a vent, but I'm trying really hard not to vent. But yeah, so this is going to lead me to something else that's scatterbrain. Why am I doing this? Why am I talking about this Toyota way, right? I'm going to tell you why. Consider this. Think about what's actually going on right now. You are listening to me talk. I'm in Miami, right? You might be somewhere in Europe. You might be somewhere in Africa. You might be somewhere in Australia. You might be somewhere in South America, Latin America, right? Think about that, okay? Oh, what are you talking about, Scott? I don't get it. You're not making sense. Oh, okay, okay. Be patient with me. Be patient with me. Think about the technology that you are using to consume what I'm talking about. That technology wasn't there 50 years ago, right? It's all right. So what, Scott? So who cares? What are you talking about? Okay, actually, let me go back to me. All right. So let me go back to me. How do I how do I do this? Let me stop presenting. All right, I stopped presenting. All right, cool. Let me see if I have any observers on here. Oh no, I don't have any viewers. All right, cool. All right. So think about what I'm saying. You are probably watching me talk or you're listening to me talk. I'm in Miami. You're probably thousands of miles away. Okay. Just marinate on that because that's related to what I'm talking about. Someone was not content with sending a telegram to explain to explain some recent news or to explain or to give an order for some people to do something, right? Like there used to be pigeons, there used to be messengers that would run from one city to another, I'm sure. Like, and the majority of society, the majority of mankind, they were okay with that. Of course, you send a messenger to run 30 miles to the next city. Why wouldn't you? Of course, you strap this letter onto a pigeon and hope that the pigeon takes the letter to wherever they go. I don't know if that's true. How do you train a pigeon to go to a certain destination? Anyway, um, so the majority of people, like probably 99% of them, 99.99, they say, "Of course you do that. That's the way things have. That's what you do. That's how you do it. What are you talking about, right?" And so, but one person, or maybe a group of people, they said, "Nah, man, this could be done better. I don't want to wait, a month for my message to get delivered, right?" One person that was not content, right? Or maybe a group of people that were not content, they fought back and they said, "I don't like this. Society embraces this. I'm not embracing this. I think this could be done better." And what do? Because they're not happy with it, they make moves. They start having discussions. They start asking questions. They start experimenting. They start reporting on their experiments. They start collaborating with others regarding their reports. They start experimenting more. And then they start producing, failing until something starts to work. And then there's a spark. Then other people take interest and they build. And then they solve the communication problem. So you go from having a messenger or a telegram to having a telephone, right? You go from having a telephone to internet, and you have people that didn't accept the way things were being done actually encourage innovation. For the rest of humanity, for the rest of 99.99999% of society to freeload off of, right? They weren't they were content with the way things were, but everything that we have, the internet, cars, trains, planes, right? Um, movies, video games, all, fax machines. I don't think we use fax machines anymore. Everything that we have that we benefit from is because someone wasn't content. Someone wasn't content, even though the rest of the population was, right? And then the rest of the population, it's negative for me to say freeloads off of them, but essentially it is because they accepted how things were when that one person, right, said, "I don't like that." But now they all benefit from it, right? So why am I saying all this? Well, I'm saying all this because I don't like where our industry is. And just like Martin Luther King, just like Thomas Edison, just like, I don't know if his name, Nikolai Tesla, just like the Wright brothers, just like people that built Google, just like a lot of people that refused to accept the way that things were, and they knew that things could be better, even though the rest of everybody, they didn't care. They went ahead and they made it happen, right? And we don't talk about how horrible they are. Now, people talk about how horrible they are while they were questioning and why they were perhaps venting about why things are the way they are, right? But after they got it done, after they satisfied their agenda, and people don't call them idiots. People don't laugh at them. They all take advantage of what they contributed to society. So, with that said, as I'm trying to connect my thoughts, is I think this industry can be improved. And the only way it could be improved is if people raise flags, they raise concerns, and they say, "Yo, this could be done better. Yo, this could be done cheaper. Yo, this could be done with higher quality." Now, those same people, they're laughed at. They get labeled, "This person is hard to work with." But in 5 years, in 10 years, all of a sudden that person becomes a hero, right? I think about Steve Jobs. I don't know Steve Jobs. I don't know anything about Steve Jobs, but I'm willing to bet that Steve Jobs did not want to accept the way things were. Steve Jobs probably was unhappy with cell phones, and he probably thought it was a stupid interface, but everybody didn't care, right? What do you mean? This is how you use a cell phone. What do you mean a cell phone should do more than just make phone calls? What? That's crazy talk. What are you talking about? Right? They probably laughed at him. They probably thought that he was just cuckoo, right? There's probably a lot of arguments, right? He's probably labeled a lot of things. But don't get me wrong, Steve Jobs didn't build the iPhone, right? He didn't build the iPod, right? Those are the unsung heroes. Engineers built that, right? They were the ones that built it, but we don't know who they are. Steve Jobs gets credit for everything. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Steve Jobs and other people that he worked with, they weren't content with what they had, even though the rest of humanity was. But instead of just taking it, accepting it, they did something about it. And they experimented and they built, they refined, and they put it out there. And it takes people like that, right? And so I'm not saying I'm Steve Jobs. I'm not saying I'm Martin Luther King. What I am saying is I think I think if we rely on normal people or ordinary people that maintain normal or ordinary belief systems, well, we would still be in the Stone Age, right? If if everything is about being content and and being a team player, then I don't think we would have anything. I think it takes people that have drive. It takes people that have interests. It takes people that will push and fight and enforce the ideas that they have. Just and then to prototype it. And that's why we have what we have. So probably didn't articulate that the way that I want, but hopefully you could get an understanding of what I'm trying to articulate is it takes outliers. It takes people that will call things out and say this can be done better. And that doesn't make them a horrible person. It makes them someone that sees potential, and that's it. So I'm babbling right now. I realized that I'm about to kill this. I'm about to take this video and post that into the blog post I just had, and I'm out. So my name is Scott Nimrod, available for hire. I think a lot about things. And adios, te veo a ratito. I'm out. 3, 2, 1. How do I stop this?